Hey guys, welcome to your favorite channel. Who are we going to talk about today? Yup. Today we'll be seeking what Umi Chii, the so-called cyber doll, is actually like, and how exactly she's influencing people. Influencing or wrongly influencing? Well, Umi Chii is one of the most recognized cyber dolls from the Philippines, building her platform on TikTok. Her content is filled with her doll-like appearance, extensive tutorials on her editing techniques, and a persona that's captured both fascination and criticism across the internet. She is the most toxic and most problematic cyberdoll one could come across. She is a content creator whose character changes with every post, every new video, and every new content. She doesn't adapt with the changing trend, but literally changes her personality with time. And let's not call it evolution. Let's better call it chameleon-like behavior. She openly acknowledges her heavily edited appearance while simultaneously displaying concerning behaviors that many find deeply troubling. She not only expresses that over-dramatically in her social media pages, but also shares content that is extremely hazardous for society. Young fans who follow her are directly and indirectly being carved with the wrong influence spread by her. In this video, we'll get to know about Umi Chii, her toxic personality, and the wrong influence she is spreading in society with her problematic content. Who in this realistic world would transform themselves into living dolls with an almost inhuman appearance? Well, cyber dolls do. The cyberdoll community revolves around achieving an unreal, almost supernatural beauty standard that intentionally crosses into the uncanny valley, that unsettling space where something appears almost human but not quite. These creators use extensive makeup techniques, specialized lighting, and significant digital editing to transform their features. Their goal isn't to look naturally beautiful in the conventional sense, but rather to appear deliberately artificial, like a living doll or anime character come to life. What makes this community particularly interesting is the relationship between authenticity and artifice. Unlike many beauty influencers who might downplay their use of filters or editing, cyberdolls often embrace and celebrate the artificial nature of their online personas. The appeal lies not in achieving a natural look, but in the artistic transformation into something deliberately unnatural. Enter Umi Chii, a 19-year-old content creator from the Philippines who quickly became one of the most recognizable figures in the cyberdoll community. What initially set Umi apart from many of her peers was her remarkable transparency about her editing process. While many influencers might pretend their appearance is natural, Umi took the opposite approach. Her TikTok bio even featured the slogan, "Editing is not something to hide," a direct challenge to the culture of secrecy that often surrounds digital beauty enhancement. In a social media landscape where unrealistic beauty standards often go unacknowledged, Umi's honesty was initially refreshing to many viewers. But wait, this refreshing honesty quickly turned sour as viewers began to identify troubling patterns in Umi's content and online behavior. I mean, sitting at a random place with a weird backdrop and talking in a lower voice isn't making you sound serious, girl. Get over it and stop acting. Let's check the recent posts of Umi Chii. What's with this Japanese obsession?
Hi, I just got back home from the marketplace. Konting gambot lang, napa 13K na ako. And so I'm going to show you what things I bought with the last of my money so that it doesn't feel as wasteful. The first would be Tsubaki Premium X Repair Shampoo. そしてこの椿コンディショナートリートメントはい and then two of these 6B プロテイン牛乳ですはい I thought it would sound less lame to be trilingual, but whatever. Bumili din ako ng coco, my favorite drink. A lot of people here and there ask me what my favorite meal is, and it would be this one, the passion fruit tea burst from coco in regular size, 30% sugar, cold but no ice, and with the black pearls replaced to white. That's the Umi drink. They always remember in both of the two branches of coco that I go to. They even remember the PWD ID thing, so di ko na kailangan yung bakita. Lagi nang nadi-discountan to 71.53 from 100, and so that's nice. That's really nice. And they're very sweet, the people from both coco branches.
The first major controversy surrounding Umi centered on her apparent fascination with Japanese culture, language, and aesthetics. While interest in another culture isn't inherently problematic, critics pointed out that Umi's behavior went beyond appreciation and veered into appropriation and fetishization. Videos surfaced of Umi speaking in Japanese and adopting what appeared to me an exaggerated Japanese accent when speaking English. One particularly viral clip showed her pronouncing the word soda with a heavy Japanese accent, which quickly became a meme and subject of parody.
どうしようあ、そうだはい全然わかんない
Another video featured her speaking entirely in Japanese with an unusually high-pitched voice, a stereotypical depiction that many found offensive.
And so I'm going to show you what things I bought with the last.
What made this behavior particularly troubling was the contrast with Umi's own statements. On her Facebook account, she had previously criticized teenagers who use AI translation tools like ChatGPT to translate content into Japanese for their aesthetic posts, warning that they might embarrass themselves in front of native speakers. This critique seemed hypocritical given her own apparent misuse of the Japanese language in her content. Yeah, not a very good habit. Influencing by being real is one thing, but influencing wrong by being obsessed with another culture and sharing that as part of your routine? No girl, not so influential.
Hello. I'd like to address all of the controversies surrounding me lately, here on TikTok and in general. But before I can honestly be capable of doing that, I'd appreciate it if all of you with the things to say regarding this can comment under this video every criticism you may have of things that I have done or that I've been alleged to have done, so that I can make sure not to miss a single point for when I go on to deconstruct everything for you all in a following video, as properly and as truthfully as I can. The criticisms which are valid, the things which are absolute lies, and the sentiments that are just pure, unadulterated hatred masquerading as morality. I really would love to address this all as comprehensively as I possibly can, but as you can imagine, I don't have any conceivable means right now to really know very much of what's going on, because that would mean actually looking through all of the accounts created supposedly to criticize my actions, but that ultimately on the most part only persist to demean me for my appearance, my demeanor, and my personhood as a whole. And so, bits and pieces from you all would be a great help in making this a productive and openly communicative discourse. And I'll make sure to read through every comment that is civil, constructive, and coming from a place of plain, level-headed critique, but not of plain condescension and hatred. That's all. Thank you.
The controversy surrounding Umi's obsession with Japanese culture took a darker turn when social media users uncovered a disturbing Facebook post in which she appeared to express hatred toward her own Filipino heritage. In the post, Umi wrote that she had always used my being fluent in English as protective means to self-isolate from the cruel, illiterate, inbred phenotype of Filipinos, and referred to her compatriots as having brains the size of cashews. These statements shocked many of her followers and critics alike. The blatant racism directed at her own ethnicity suggested a concerning level of internalized racism and self-hatred. Some speculated that her fixation on Japanese aesthetics might stem from this self-loathing, a desire to distance herself from Filipino identity and adopt what she perceived as a superior cultural identity. In the era of cultural pride and appreciation, promoting such internalized racism and hatred is shameful. Here's a content creator who asks her audience to follow along with her transformation. But no one, girl, just sit and rethink what you are doing on a social platform. Perhaps the most serious and troubling controversy surrounding Umi involved allegations of what internet users termed lollybaiting, creating content that intentionally appeals to individuals with inappropriate attractions to childlike figures. Critics alleged that Umi was deliberately infantilizing herself to appeal to this demographic. As evidence, they pointed to her choice of clothing, particularly a video in which she danced while wearing what appeared to be a Japanese school gym uniform. At 19 years old, nearly 20 according to her TikTok bio, Umi was clearly not a school student, and she did not live in Japan or attend a Japanese school that would require such attire. This choice of clothing, combined with her doll-like appearance and childish mannerisms, led many to accuse her of intentionally cultivating a persona that would appeal to individuals with inappropriate attractions to minors or childlike figures. The fact that she was an adult creating this content made it particularly concerning to critics, who saw it as potentially normalizing problematic attractions. A cyber doll who promotes this type of content is crazy, and her fans are crazy about it. Guys, it's time to have a parents' meetup. Let's get y'all out of it. As these controversies accumulated, the internet's response to Umi shifted dramatically. What had once been mild criticism or parody of her unusual aesthetic became more focused condemnation of her behavior and apparent values. Videos analyzing her problematic statements and actions began to circulate widely, bringing greater attention to the controversy. The cyberdoll community itself became divided. While some defended Umi's right to express herself however she chose, others distanced themselves from her, concerned that her behavior would reflect poorly on their subculture as a whole. Many emphasized that the cyberdoll aesthetic itself wasn't inherently problematic. It was Umi's specific choices and statements that had crossed ethical lines. Let's not just shoot Umi Chii, but there are other cyberdolls too who are creating content with responsibility and ethics. So guys, let's dive into the real implications of the Umei Chi controversy. I mean seriously, in today's internet landscape where literally anyone can create a persona and gain millions of followers overnight, what actual responsibilities do these content creators have? Are they even thinking about how they're influencing their audiences? This whole cyberdoll aesthetic thing is wild when you think about it. People using digital tools to completely transform themselves beyond human limitations? It's fascinating. But Umi's story shows us the dark side of this artistic expression. What started as creative exploration quickly turned into something tangled up with some really troubling attitudes about race, culture, and even age. And let's talk about how quickly the internet can turn on you. One minute Umi was praised for being transparent. Look at this comment, "You're such a sweet person. I don't know how they hate you." The next minute, that same transparency exposed attitudes that people found deeply problematic. That's the internet for you, building you up just to watch you fall. Check this. This is too much. What kind of person wakes up one day and decides to become a cyberdoll online? For many, it's just artistic expression or digital escapism. The chance to exist is something beyond human limitations. For others, it's about controlling their image in a world that's obsessed with appearances. But with Umi, her statement suggests something way more concerning. She wasn't just trying to escape being human, she was trying to escape her Filipino identity, her cyberdoll persona. With all those Japanese influences and that completely transformed appearance, it looks a lot like she was trying to reinvent herself as something she thought was better than her actual heritage. Psychologists would probably call this internalized racism, when people from marginalized groups absorb all the negative messages society throws at them about their own race or ethnicity. In extreme cases like what we're seeing here, it leads to self-hatred and desperate attempts to distance yourself from your own cultural background. And where does the real person end and the online persona begin? For content creators who heavily edit their appearance or adopt these exaggerated personalities, that line gets super blurry. Sometimes even for the creators themselves, they start believing in their own digital fantasy. The cyberdoll community exists right at the edge of these huge questions about bodily autonomy and digital identity. On one side, transforming your appearance through technology is creative freedom and self-expression. But when these transformations reinforce harmful stereotypes, they're contributing to narratives that hurt real people. Umi's case is particularly messy because her transformations weren't just about looks, they were cultural. She was apparently trying to adopt Japanese identity while rejecting her Filipino heritage. When does appreciation become appropriation? And when does appropriation become straight-up erasure of your own identity? Then there's the whole lolly-baiting allegations, which add another layer of ick to all of this. If you're deliberately styling yourself to appeal to problematic attractions, even if you're adult, what are the ethical implications? In a media world where youth is already overly sexualized, these personas are just making things worse.
I don't want to be a burden for anyone. I don't want to keep being a problem. I'm trying all my best for moments. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying.
At just 19 years old, Umi found herself in the middle of a massive internet controversy. It raises some serious questions about youth, accountability, and the pressures of internet fame. Young content creators often build these huge platforms before they've even figured themselves out or developed solid moral frameworks. No wonder they end up posting problematic content. They're still figuring out their own values. But being young doesn't mean you get a free pass for your words and actions, especially when you've built a platform that influences others. So what's the right response when young influencers mess up big time? Complete cancellation, or giving them room to grow and redeem themselves? In Umi's case, her statements about Filipinos struck many as way too extreme to just brush off as youthful mistakes. The deliberate nature of her persona's problematic elements made critics think these weren't simple errors, but conscious choices. That's a whole different level of problematic.
One thing that I find fascinating about the culture around internet cancellation is that it runs fundamentally on the psychological principle that you are not who you are truly as a person. You are who we decided you are based on screenshots taken out of context and photos edited to make you look bad, and you can never ever become anyone else in your lifetime. You will never again be redeemed in the eyes of the internet because these screenshots from your Facebook from when you were 16, 17, and 18 are a permanent representation of who you are. That's just an incredible thing, because as much as you are well aware that the people who truly know you outside of the screen are aware that you are kind and that your actions on a day-to-day basis are objectively good. Internet branding, it's like a fourth-degree burn. They don't want it to go away. It's not just a temporary scab. It has to be permanent scarring.
Let's not forget about the platforms like TikTok that host this content. While creators are responsible for what they post, these platforms create environments where that content either thrives or fails. TikTok and other social media platforms are constantly trying to figure out what crosses the line from unusual or provocative to actually harmful. The cyberdoll aesthetic itself might make some viewers uncomfortable with that uncanny valley effect, but that alone doesn't necessarily break platform rules. But content promoting racism, including internalized racism or sexualizing minors, that clearly violates most platforms' terms of service. The real challenge is consistently identifying and moderating this content, especially when creators use coded language and imagery to fly under the radar. The Umei Chi controversy is just one chapter in how online identity and self-expression are evolving. As technology keeps advancing, the possibilities for digital transformation will only get more extreme. Virtual reality, deepfakes, increasingly sophisticated AI tools, the line between authentic self-preservation and digital fabrication is getting blurrier by the day. This technological future makes it even more important that we develop ethical frameworks for understanding digital personas. When anyone can appear as anything online, how do we maintain meaningful connections and actual accountability? The cyberdoll community will keep evolving, probably becoming more mainstream as digital editing tools become more accessible to everyone. The aesthetic might change, but that fundamental appeal of transcending human limitations through technology, that's here to stay whether we like it or not. As criticism mounted and parody videos flooded TikTok, Umi finally addressed the controversies head-on. She posted a TikTok inviting critics to share concerns in the comments so she could deconstruct everything in a follow-up video.
As easy as it would be for me to say, "Maligo ka nga, baho mo," I am instead going to say that there is this phenomenon which girls and women on the internet will almost always be invariably subjected to once they have reached a certain follower count, and that is people, in particular little children, trying to drag them in, but that being entirely one-sided, because these women exist very simply, minding their own business, on a separate, higher, and peaceful plane, which these goblin toddlers can never in their lifetime conceivably reach. And it is so hilariously pathetic to witness. They create entire accounts just to post screenshots of these creators, who have done nothing even remotely wrong, and then they overlay it with violently hateful paragraphs with like the vomit emoji or something, thereby investing actual time, energy, and effort from their wasteful little lives onto hating on figures who will never even come near them with a 50-foot pole. When people ask me why and how it is that I handle and disregard hate so well and so gracefully, it's because I see very easily that this is the behavior of people with underdeveloped brains, who allocate their limited energy in the ways that only lowlifes will, and so I feel nothing but bad for them. Because imagine being 15 years old and doing that instead of showering, instead of doing your homework, instead of going on a walk, instead of having friends and being with your family. And I could go on about the psychodynamics which compel hateful little kids to engage so passionately in this, but my breath is honestly quite valuable, and I know that it wouldn't be well spent on dedicating it to things and people as insignificant as that.
True to her online persona, Umi's address featured that verbose language her audience had come to expect, the same distinctive style her parodies mimic with its extensive vocabulary and convoluted structure. In her rambling statement, she asked for civil constructive criticism rather than what she called pure unadulterated hatred masquerading as morality.
Hello, I'd like to address all of the controversies surrounding me lately, here on TikTok and in general. But before I can honestly be capable of doing that, I'd appreciate it if all of you with the things to say regarding this can comment under this video every criticism you may have of things that I have done or that I've been alleged to have done, so that I can make sure not to miss a single point for when I go on to deconstruct everything for you all in a following video, as properly and as truthfully as I can. The criticisms which are valid, the things which are absolute lies, and the sentiments that are just pure, unadulterated hatred masquerading as morality. I really would love to address this all as comprehensively as I possibly can, but as you can imagine, I don't have any conceivable means right now to really know very much of what's going on, because that would mean actually looking through all of the accounts created supposedly to criticize my actions, but that ultimately on the most part only persist to demean me for my appearance, my demeanor, and my personhood as a whole. And so, bits and pieces from you all would be a great help in making this a productive and openly communicative discourse. And I'll make sure to read through every comment that is civil, constructive, and coming from a place of plain, level-headed critique, but not of plain condescension and hatred. That's all. Thank you.
The response? Immediate backlash. Viewers couldn't believe Umi claimed ignorance about specific allegations when these controversies were being discussed everywhere. Her statement that she doesn't have any conceivable means right now to really know very much of what's going on struck many as completely fake, especially given how active she was online. But what really frustrated viewers? Her refusal to engage with any substantial criticism. Instead of addressing her comments about Filipinos, her apparent fetishization of Japanese culture, or concerns about lollybaiting, she fixated entirely on tone policing, basically asking critics to be nicer. This response video revealed a massive disconnect between how Umi saw herself and how others perceived her. While she presented herself as an intellectual figure open to productive and openly communicative discourse, viewers saw someone utterly unwilling to face legitimate concerns about her content and statements. Her behavior after posting only reinforced this perception. Despite claiming to want constructive criticism, Umi predominantly engaged with supportive comments while ghosting substantive critiques, even politely expressed ones. This selective engagement convinced many that her video wasn't about accountability at all, but seeking validation for her existing perspective.
Hello, I'd like to address all of the controversies surrounding me lately, here on TikTok and in general. But before I can honestly be capable of doing that, I'd appreciate it if all of you with the things to say regarding this can comment under this video every criticism you may have of things that I have done or that I've been alleged to have done, so that I can make sure not to miss a single point for when I go on to deconstruct everything for you all in a following video, as properly and as truthfully as I can. The criticisms which are valid, the things which are absolute lies, and the sentiments that are just pure, unadulterated hatred masquerading as morality. I really would love to address this all as comprehensively as I possibly can, but as you can imagine, I don't have any conceivable means right now to really know very much of what's going on, because that would mean actually looking through all of the accounts created supposedly to criticize my actions, but that ultimately on the most part only persist to demean me for my appearance, my demeanor, and my personhood as a whole. And so, bits and pieces from you all would be a great help in making this a productive and openly communicative discourse. And I'll make sure to read through every comment that is civil, constructive, and coming from a place of plain, level-headed critique, but not of plain condescension and hatred. That's all. Thank you.
This situation exposed a fundamental contradiction in Umi's brand. She'd built her following partly on transparency about digital editing, yet appeared completely unwilling to be transparent about more troubling aspects of her content. This hypocrisy damaged her credibility, even among followers who'd initially appreciated her openness about beauty filters and editing techniques. The video also sparked wider discussions about communication styles on social media. Commenters pointed out that Umi's jargon-filled speaking style, seemingly presented as evidence of intelligence, actually undermined effective communication. Language experts noted that true mastery isn't demonstrated by complex vocabulary, but by explaining complicated topics clearly and concisely to diverse audiences. Umi's tendency to go around in circles trying to use as many flowery and big words as possible, as one critic put it, came across as performative rather than genuinely communicative.
Hi, I'm studying right now, but the other day I read on Facebook that some of us are going to wake up at 35 and realize that all we did was impress the internet, and that genuinely changed my life. Right now I'm at the age where I'm realizing that it is a deeply radical thing to not be pressured into externalizing your existence on the internet just to feel important, just to feel like you matter, because you matter by nature of existing. You can live by just being alive, and as it happens, you do not actually need these facts reaffirmed by other people online. It's okay to live your teenage and early adult years just fulfilling your academic responsibilities and working towards meaningful objectives. This is the first phase where I'm realizing just how much more there is to us than trying to regulate our self-images. And there is so much we can make of our lives outside of proving our images as being something of high value. There is so much more to being a person than being remembered widely at a certain point in time. The significance of that is bound to be fleeting. And so attaching yourself in any way to it just means clinging needlessly onto who you were or still think you could have been. It is such a freeing and wonderful thing to concentrate instead on the value of your lived experiences in the present and moving forward with each passing moment, than to fixate on whether you've done all you can to be someone big enough, someone pretty enough, someone beautiful, worthwhile, memorable, someone special. As someone who knows what comes with all of that, I have seen so clearly how it's okay to not have been any of those things. It doesn't indicate your insignificance, it just proves your privacy. It's okay to just be a person who exists and who existed on a small, private scale, but one made meaningful through human connection and genuinely fulfilling goals in the real world. So, I'm gonna study now.
This criticism extended beyond just Umi to a broader trend among internet personalities who use unnecessarily complex language as a shield against criticism or to project intellectual authority. communication scholars observed that when clarity is essential, such as addressing serious allegations, deliberate linguistic complexity serves to obscure rather than illuminate. Eventually, Umi released a more comprehensive response on YouTube, attempting to address each controversy directly. This longer format gave her space to explain her perspective on the allegations in greater detail.
On two parts. Firstly, things that I have said and shared being purposefully misconstrued beyond all reasonable degrees in order to corrupt my image. And secondly, the malignant, intentionally made up lies being largely spread about me in order to vilify my personhood as a whole. In this video, I will dispute all of the allegations which are false and shed light on those that hold some truth. I'll bring attention to the many things which I am expected to apologize for, but which I will not, but also the few for which I will. To do this, I'll be quoting and deconstructing this document as well as parts of this video so that I can acknowledge all of their fallacies and gaps as well as their partial and whole truths. Point by point, claim by claim. This video will be divided into 10 parts. If you are here for the truth, then let's begin. If you're only here having already made up your mind that I am a problematic creator and an irredeemably bad person without you even needing the truth itself, then you are still welcome to try and listen as well. But now with the chance provided to think critically, not for me, not against them, but for yourself. So because the truth is mine and mine alone, I'm going to take control of this narrative now, okay?
About the cosplay controversy, Umi clarified that her interest in cosplaying Sora from Yosugo no Sora was purely aesthetic. She emphasized being drawn to the character's visual style and Lolita fashion, a Japanese style focused on elegance and elaborate dresses rather than the anime's controversial narrative elements. She explicitly stated that appreciating a character's design didn't mean endorsing the problematic themes of the show. She posted this: "I just realized my body is good enough now to cosplay Dora Kasugano and Saya." To support this explanation, she mentioned that Sora appears in relatable memes on platforms like Pinterest, suggesting that many people separate the character's visual appeal from the controversial narrative context. Her explanation highlighted the common practice in anime communities of appreciating character designs independently from storylines, a nuance possibly lost on those outside these communities. Umi's clarifications spotlighted the complex cultural dynamics at play in her content. The Lolita fashion she referenced is a legitimate Japanese street fashion subculture that, despite the unfortunate name's Western associations, centers on modesty, elegance, and elaborate Victorian and Rococo-inspired clothing. This showed how cultural elements can be misinterpreted when viewed through different cultural lenses. Similarly, her explanation about anime character appreciation reflected common practices within fan communities, where characters are often appreciated for design elements independent of storylines. For those unfamiliar with these communities, her interest in a character from a controversial anime appeared more problematic than it might to insiders. These cultural gaps raised important questions about how online content is interpreted across different contexts. What might be recognized as a legitimate fashion subculture or a common fan practice in one context could appear deeply problematic when viewed through another cultural lens. While Umi's YouTube clarification provided context for some controversial content choices, many critics felt her explanations didn't address the core issues. The question remained whether her explanations adequately accounted for the pattern of behavior documented across her content, particularly her comments about Filipinos and apparent fetishization of Japanese culture. See what an audience commented on the controversial video. Moreover, even taking her explanations at face value, critics questioned whether she'd adequately considered how her content might be perceived by different audiences, especially those lacking the cultural context to interpret her references as intended. The fact that her content attracted viewers with problematic interests, even if unintentionally, raised questions about creator responsibility that her responses didn't fully address. The controversy brought authenticity to the forefront. Umi had built her brand partly on transparency about digital editing, Yet her responses to criticism seem to lack that same transparency regarding her motivations and values. This contradiction highlighted a common challenge in digital spaces: selective authenticity, allowing creators to be open about certain aspects of their online persona while obscuring others. In Umi's case, her willingness to be transparent about technical aspects of content creation contrasted sharply with what many perceived as unwillingness to engage honestly with the cultural and ethical dimensions. For the broader cyberdoll community, Umi's controversies created both challenges and opportunities for reflection. Many creators found themselves distancing their work from problematic elements associated with Umi while still defending the aesthetic as legitimate digital self-expression.
The world is so unfair. I have to.
Some cyberdoll creators responded by being more explicit about their intentions and values, clarifying the artistic and technical aspects of their work rather than letting audiences project potentially problematic interpretations. Others began incorporating more diverse cultural influences or making their adult status more explicit to avoid confusion about their content's nature. This community's self-examination showed how online subcultures can evolve in response to legitimate criticism, preserving creative expression while rejecting harmful elements. The Umi Chii controversy occurred during rapid evolution of online accountability. Audiences increasingly expected creators not just to entertain, but to demonstrate awareness of their content's potential impacts and take responsibility when problems emerged. This shift represented internet culture maturing, moving from an era where online personas were often treated as separate from real identities to a more integrated understanding, acknowledging real-world impacts of online behavior. For creators like Umi, who built their brand in an earlier phase of internet culture, adapting to these new expectations proved challenging. Perhaps the most important lesson from the Umi Chii controversy is the need for enhanced digital literacy among content consumers. As digital editing becomes increasingly sophisticated and accessible, the ability to critically evaluate online content becomes essential. This includes understanding not just that images are edited, but recognizing cultural contexts, preferences, and potential implications of the content we consume. For parents and educators, cases like Umi's highlight the importance of teaching young people to recognize potentially problematic content patterns, even when not explicitly sexual or violent. Understanding concepts like cultural appropriation, infantilization, and subtleties of problematic appeal requires nuanced discussion beyond simple content filtering. The controversy also underscored the importance of cross-cultural digital literacy, recognizing when content draws from different cultural contexts and approaching such content with appropriate understanding. As online spaces bring together users from diverse backgrounds, developing this literacy becomes increasingly crucial for both creators and audiences. As technology advances, possibilities for digital transformation and personal creation will only expand. Virtual reality, deepfakes, and increasingly sophisticated AI tools are already blurring lines between authentic self-preservation and digital fabrication in ways that make Umi's editing techniques seem primitive by comparison. This technological future makes developing ethical frameworks for understanding and evaluating digital personas even more important. When anyone can appear as anything online, how do we maintain meaningful connections and accountability? How do we distinguish between creative digital expression and potentially harmful deception? The cyberdoll community itself will likely continue evolving, perhaps becoming more mainstream as digital editing tools become more accessible. The aesthetics may shift, but the fundamental appeal of transcending human limitations through technology will remain. The challenge will be cultivating forms of digital transformation that celebrate rather than erase authentic identity and foster connection rather than exploitation. The story of Umei Chi serves as a powerful case study in the complexities of digital identity, cultural exchange, and online responsibility. What began as an apparently innovative approach to beauty editing evolved into a troubling portrait of internalized racism, cultural fetishization, and content that appeared designed, intentionally or not, to appeal to problematic interests.
On two parts. Firstly, things that I have said and shared being purposefully misconstrued beyond all reasonable degrees in order to corrupt my image. And secondly, the malignant, intentionally made up lies being largely spread about me in order to vilify my personhood as a whole. In this video, I will dispute all of the allegations which are false and shed light on those that hold some truth. I'll bring attention to the many things which I am expected to apologize for, but which I will not, but also the few for which I will. To do this, I'll be quoting and deconstructing this document as well as parts of this video so that I can acknowledge all of their fallacies and gaps as well as their partial and whole truths. Point by point, claim by claim. This video will be divided into 10 parts. If you are here for the truth, then let's begin. If you're only here having already made up your mind that I am a problematic creator and an irredeemably bad person without you even needing the truth itself, then you are still welcome to try and listen as well. But now with the chance provided to think critically, not for me, not against them, but for yourself. So because the truth is mine and mine alone, I'm going to take control of this narrative now, okay? Okay. To begin with, all 4 claims made in this document's opening paragraph alone are false. Firstly, of all 14,000 comments made under my last video on TikTok, likely even more than that, there was not a single comment made in a respectful manner. I have seen this, my manager has seen this, and most notably, you all have seen this, the majority of you having joyfully participated.
Even after her attempts at clarification, questions remain about the disconnect between Umi's stated intentions and the patterns evident in her content. This gap highlights how intention and impact can diverge dramatically in online spaces, where content creators cannot control how their work will be interpreted or which audiences it'll attract. For content creators, Umi's story underscores the importance of developing not just technical skills, but ethical awareness, understanding that online choices have real impacts that may extend far beyond what is intended. It also highlights the value of genuine openness to criticism, not just as a performance of accountability, but as an authentic commitment to growth. For platforms and communities, the controversy illustrates the need for more nuanced approaches to content moderation that can identify problematic patterns even when individual posts don't explicitly violate guidelines. It also demonstrates how community standards evolve over time, often becoming more sophisticated in response to specific controversies. And for all of us as digital citizens, the Umei Chi story reminds us to engage critically with what we see online, to look beyond surface aesthetics to the values being expressed, and to consider whether those values we want to support through our engagement. In the end, digital transformation, whether through filters, editing, or personal creation, is neither inherently good nor bad. The ethical questions arise from the intentions behind it, the contexts it draws from, and the impacts it has. As technology continues expanding possibilities for digital self-expression, these ethical questions will only become The most gripping online personas are those that expand our understanding of human possibility rather than reinforce harmful stereotypes. In a world where anyone can appear as anything online, perhaps the most revolutionary choice is to be truthful, not just about editing techniques, but about who we really are and what we truly value.